I'm Jonathan Reynolds, and I've been practicing family law in Texas for over 15 years. You see a lot of heartbreak in my line of work, but nothing prepares you for the absolute terror in a parent's eyes when their child vanishes. I remember that day vividly. It was a Tuesday morning, a warm spring day in Dallas, the kind that usually promises new beginnings. But for Sarah Jenkins, it felt like the end of her world. She walked into my office not just distraught, but utterly broken, her eyes swollen and red, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold the tissue I offered. Her 7-year-old daughter, Emily, was gone. Not just lost, not kidnapped by a stranger, but snatched by the very person who was supposed to protect her, Emily's own father, Sarah's ex-husband, Mark. He had taken Emily for a scheduled weekend visitation and simply never brought her back. The shocking detail, the one that made my stomach drop, was a text message Sarah received 3 days after Emily was due back, a message from an unknown number. "You'll never find us. Emily's better off without you." It was a taunt, a cruel twist of the knife, designed to inflict maximum pain. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't just about winning a legal argument. It was about rescuing a little girl from a nightmare, restoring a mother's sanity, and proving that court orders, especially those involving the safety and well-being of a child, are not suggestions. This was about bringing Emily home. Here's what you need to understand about a situation like this. A parental kidnapping across state lines. It's not just a violation of a court order, it's a felony. Under the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, or UCCJGEA, the state where the child has resided for at least 6 consecutive months, known as the home state, maintains exclusive, continuing jurisdiction over the custody case. In this instance, Texas was Emily's home state. The UCCJEA prevents parents from crossing state lines to evade custody orders or to find a more favorable court, a practice often called forum shopping. When a parent absconds with a child, it activates a complex legal framework designed to locate and return the child. Beyond the civil remedies under the UCCJEA, there are often criminal implications. In Texas, for example, Texas Penal Code Paragraph 25. 3. Interference with child custody makes it a state jail felony to take or retain a child in violation of a court order with the intent to prevent the child's lawful return to the person entitled to possession. This means we weren't just pursuing civil custody, we were looking at potential criminal charges for Mark. This interconnected web of civil and criminal law is what gives cases like Sarah's their teeth, allowing us to leverage law enforcement agencies not just locally but federally to bring a child home. It transforms a private family dispute into a matter of public justice, underscoring the severity of violating a child custody order. Sarah Jenkins was a 34-year-old marketing manager for a tech firm, intelligent and usually composed. But when she sat in my office that day, she was a shadow of herself. Her usual crisp business attire was replaced by rumpled shirt and jeans, her usually neatly tied blonde hair falling in disarray around her face. Her voice, when she could find it, cracked with every syllable. She and Mark had divorced 2 years prior, a contentious split fueled by Mark's unpredictable temper and financial irresponsibility. The final divorce decree, signed by Judge Eleanor Vance here in Dallas, clearly stipulated that Sarah was the primary conservator, meaning Emily resided with her, and Mark had standard possession orders including alternating weekend visitations. Mark had a history of trying to push boundaries, often returning Emily late, but he'd never done anything like this. The last scheduled visitation was May 10, 2023, a Friday. Sarah had dropped Emily off at Mark's small apartment in Fort Worth. Emily, a bright-eyed 7-year-old with a shy smile and a love for drawing, had hugged Sarah goodbye, promising to show her a new picture she'd drawn when she got back on Sunday evening, May 12th. Sunday came and went. Mark's phone went straight to voicemail. Sarah called the police, but because it was a civil custody matter, they initially told her to wait, to give Mark a few more hours, saying he might just be running late. By Monday morning, when Mark still hadn't answered any calls or texts and Emily wasn't at school, Sarah knew something was gravely wrong. That's when she received that chilling text. Mark had quit his job abruptly a month before, citing vague health issues, and had been liquidating assets, which in hindsight was a massive red flag. He also had family connections in California, a sister he hadn't spoken to in years, but who Sarah knew he might try to reach out to in a desperate situation. Sarah told me through choked sobs that she blamed herself, feeling like she should have seen the signs, should have been more vigilant. Her raw vulnerability, the utter devastation in her eyes, solidified my resolve. I knew I had to take this case. Emily needed to be found, and Mark needed to be held accountable. The first thing we did was move quickly on the civil front, filing an emergency motion for a writ of habeas corpus and a request for a warrant for Emily's apprehension. This established the legal basis for law enforcement to act. Simultaneously, I contacted the Dallas Police Department and the FBI, emphasizing the criminal aspect under the Texas Penal Code, Part 2503, and the interstate implications. I explained that this wasn't just a simple custody dispute. It was a felony abduction. The initial days were a blur of paperwork and frantic calls. Mark had clearly planned this. His phone was disconnected, his social media accounts deleted. We hired a top-tier private investigator, David Miller, a former police detective with a knack for digital forensics and tracking. David immediately started digging. We subpoenaed Mark's bank records, credit card statements, and what limited phone records we could get from his last known cell number. It was like searching for a ghost. The first major obstacle was the lack of an immediate physical trail. Mark hadn't used his own credit cards for any travel expenses. Cash withdrawals appeared to be his method of operation. We traced a series of large cash withdrawals from various ATMs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the days leading up to May 10th, totaling nearly $15,000. It suggested he had enough funds to disappear for a while. David scoured old family photos Sarah provided, looking for any obscure background details, specific landmarks, anything that might hint at a preferred hiding spot or a relative's residence. We hit several dead ends. Mark had told very few people about his plans, and those he did seemed fiercely loyal or genuinely ignorant of his current whereabouts. Opposing counsel, a sharp, albeit somewhat arrogant lawyer named Brenda Harrison, representing Mark after he eventually retained her from California, tried to paint Sarah as overreacting, claiming Mark had simply taken an extended vacation, but offered no proof of Emily's well-being or location. She refused to provide any contact information for Mark, citing attorney-client privilege, a tactic designed to buy him more time. This fueled my determination. I knew Mark wouldn't just vanish. He would leave a digital breadcrumb, however faint. We broadened our search, looking at connections to his old online gaming communities and obscure forums he used to frequent. We needed to find one specific piece of evidence to break through. Then came the breakthrough. It was a late night, weeks after Emily's disappearance. David Miller, my PI, called me, his voice tight with controlled excitement. He had been meticulously sifting through archived social media posts, not just Mark's, but those of his distant relatives and old friends. He'd stumbled upon an old obscure photo album on a forgotten Flickr account belonging to Mark's sister, Lisa, who lived in California. The account hadn't been active in years, but there was one photo, uploaded just a week after Emily went missing, a blurry background shot of a bustling outdoor market, clearly in San Diego. It wouldn't have meant anything on its own, but then David noticed a small detail. In the very corner of the frame, half hidden behind a fruit stand, was a familiar little girl's bright pink backpack, the same one Emily had carried to school every day. My heart raced when I saw it. It was a long shot, but combined with Lisa's location in San Diego and the timing, it was more than a coincidence. It was a digital fingerprint. This wasn't the smoking gun, not yet, but it was the trajectory. We immediately cross-referenced this with public records for Lisa and found a recent change of address. She had moved from a suburban home to a condo right on the waterfront in Coronado, a city known for its beautiful beaches just across the bay from San Diego. The pieces were starting to fit together. Then David found it. An even more damning piece of evidence. A receipt for a rental car, paid in cash, from a San Diego agency, dated 3 days after Emily's disappearance, with an electronic toll record showing usage around Coronado. This was the true smoking gun. It proved Mark had traveled to San Diego, rented a vehicle, and was actively residing there, likely with Emily, defying the court order. When I called Sarah and told her we had located Emily's probable location, Her initial scream of relief quickly turned into a flood of tears. It was a moment of profound emotion, a glimpse of hope breaking through weeks of despair. The Texas courtroom on the day of the hearing crackled with a palpable tension. Judge Eleanor Vance, a no-nonsense jurist known for her strict adherence to legal procedure, sat imposingly on the bench. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Sarah sat beside me, pale but resolute, clutching a small photo of Emily. Across the aisle, Brenda Harrison sat alone, Mark noticeably absent, participating via video conference from California. My strategy was clear: establish jurisdiction, present the overwhelming evidence of Mark's contempt, and demand Emily's immediate return. My key witness was David Miller. He walked the court through his painstaking investigation, detailing the ATM withdrawals, the frantic search for digital footprints, and finally, the discovery of Lisa's Flickr account. He methodically presented the blurry market photo, highlighting Emily's backpack, then overlaid it with Sarah's own photos of Emily with the same distinctive backpack. Then came the damning evidence: the San Diego rental car receipt, the associated toll records showing travel around Coronado. "Mr. Miller, based on your expert investigation," I asked, "do you have an opinion as to the whereabouts of Emily Jenkins following her disappearance on May 10, 2023? David's voice was calm and authoritative. "Yes, Mr. Reynolds. All evidence points to Mark Jenkins having taken Emily Jenkins to the Coronado area of San Diego, California, and residing there since shortly after May 10th. Brenda Harrison launched into her cross-examination of Sarah, trying to discredit her, implying Sarah was an overprotective mother who alienated Mark from Emily, driving him to desperate measures. "Ms. Jenkins," Harrison began, "isn't it true that you frequently interfered with Mr. Jenkins' visitation, often making it difficult for him to see his daughter?" Sarah, though shaken, held her ground. "No, Ms. Harrison. I always followed the court order. Mark was often late and sometimes verbally abusive, but I never denied him visitation." I objected to the line of questioning as irrelevant, and Judge Vance sustained, warning Harrison to stick to the facts. Then it was my turn to cross-examine Mark Jenkins, who appeared on a large monitor, his face tight and defensive. "Mr. Jenkins," I began, my voice even, "is it not true that you specifically deleted your social media accounts and disconnected your phone on May 10th, 2023? He stammered, I was just taking a break." "A break that coincided precisely with your daughter's disappearance," I pressed. He shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Jenkins, isn't this photograph," I said, displaying the Flickr photo on the screen for the entire courtroom to see, clearly of your daughter Emily's backpack taken in San Diego, weeks after she was due back with her mother? Mark's face drained of all color. He mumbled something unintelligible. His attorney, Brenda Harrison, looked utterly defeated, sinking deeper into her chair. I continued, "And isn't it true, Mr. Jenkins, that you withdrew over $15,000 in cash in the days before Emily's disappearance, money you then used to flee the state, rent a car, and evade a lawful court order?" Mark finally snapped, shouting, "I was just trying to give Emily a better life, away from Sarah's control." The courtroom went silent. Judge Vance glared at him. "Mr. Jenkins, you are in a court of law. I advise you to answer counsel's questions truthfully and respectfully." That outburst, that admission of intent, sealed his fate. My final argument was brief, focusing on the sanctity of court orders, the intentional violation, and the emotional trauma inflicted upon Sarah and, more importantly, upon Emily. Judge Vance's ruling was swift and uncompromising. She stated that Mark Jenkins had acted with malicious intent, clearly violating the standing court order and causing immense distress to both Sarah and Emily. She ordered Emily's immediate return to Sarah's sole conservatorship, with law enforcement in San Diego instructed to assist in the recovery and safe transfer of Emily back to Texas. Mark's parental rights were significantly curtailed, reducing his visitation to strictly supervised visits, to be reviewed only after a minimum of 1 year and satisfactory completion of therapy and co-parenting classes. Furthermore, Judge Vance held Mark in contempt of court, levied a substantial fine against him, and ordered him to pay Sarah's extensive legal fees, stating his actions were a blatant disregard for judicial authority. She also referred the case to the appropriate prosecuting authorities in Texas, recommending that criminal charges under Texas Penal Code, Part 25. EO3 for interference with child custody be actively pursued. The judge left no doubt Mark's desperate, illegal actions would carry severe consequences. When the judge made her ruling, Sarah burst into tears, this time tears of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Within 48 hours, Emily was safely back in Sarah's arms, their reunion a moment I will never forget. It was quiet, just Emily clinging to Sarah, both sobbing, the weight of the past few weeks finally lifting. Here's what I learned from this case, something that applies to so many of the families I represent. Desperation can twist even a parent's love into something destructive. Mark genuinely believed he was doing what was best for Emily, but his actions were selfish, illegal, and caused profound trauma. The broader legal lesson for anyone watching is simple. Court orders are not suggestions. They are legally binding mandates, and violating them, especially in custody matters, carries severe civil and criminal penalties. The system may move slowly, but it has long arms. Warning signs people should watch for in a co-parent relationship, especially after a contentious divorce, include sudden changes in behavior, threats to leave with the child, liquidating assets, quitting jobs without a clear plan, or exhibiting extreme controlling tendencies. If your ex-spouse starts talking about taking the child somewhere better or expressing disdain for the court system, pay attention. Practical advice? Document everything. Every text, every email, every missed visitation, every suspicious financial move. Keep a go-bag for your child with essential documents and clothes, just in case. And if you are facing a situation where you fear your co-parent might abduct your child, here's what you need to know. Act immediately. Don't wait. Contact law enforcement and contact an experienced family law attorney who understands parental kidnapping and interstate custody laws. The faster you act, the higher the chances of a swift and safe return. This case underscored the professional insight that behind every legal battle lies a deeply human story, often one of love, loss, and the devastating consequences of desperate choices. It's been almost a year since Emily came home. Sarah and Emily are thriving. Emily is back in school, excelling in her art class, and has undergone therapy to help her process the ordeal. Sarah has found a new sense of peace, rebuilding her life, no longer living in constant fear. Mark faced his consequences. He pleaded guilty to the felony charge, received a suspended sentence, and remains under strict supervision, with his visitation rights severely limited to fully supervised sessions with a court-appointed monitor. He also had to adhere to a strict payment plan for the court-ordered fines and Sarah's legal fees. This case, like so many, reminds me why I do this job. It's not just about interpreting statutes. It's about fighting for justice, for peace, and for the most vulnerable among us. Seeing Emily's smile again, knowing Sarah can sleep at night, that's the real victory. Drop your questions in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. I've got plenty more stories to tell, and I'll see you in the next one.